3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on nccradio.org. That is the website, nccradio.org. This program is later archived for your listening pleasure on Spreaker.com, and the program is repeated on Sundays. Tell your friends and your neighbors at 11 p.m. If they miss it in the morning on Sunday morning, they can hear it again in the evening. So hi there, my name is, you got it, I didn't change it from last week. It's the same name in fact, it's the same name I have since the day I was born, Rabbi Perl. Good morning. Actually, it wasn't a rabbi when I was first born, but you know what's a few years in between a rabbi. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening and watching. Gavald. People are listening and watching us all the way from Boca Tov. Boca Tov in Hebrew means good morning, and I thought they meant Boca Raton. What a mistake. How could I even think that way? So good morning to Zalman Weg, to Holly Feynman Lapinel, and to Garen Dunbag. Good morning to you and to everybody out there. We are Gavald. You can see us on Facebook Live as well. Not only can you listen to us, you can actually see us. We're on the WHPC page of this great college, and also on my own Facebook.com, Montreal Pearl. So, you know the mantra. Hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. My friends, I want to start off with a little PSA, so to speak. Obviously the world is going crazy. And I'm thinking about this very deeply. And I want to make this following offer to everybody. This is the first time it's being announced today. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the lucky ones. I need someone out there who has a platform of lots of people, whether it's on a college, whether it's in a school, whether it's in a Rotary Club, I don't care, any group. And I have a program to offer. And it's in response to the world around us. And everybody's into this side and that side and the negative side. And I want to make this following offer. No money, nothing. I'm willing to come and make this following presentation. It's called Be a Mensch Without a Bench. Let me repeat that again. Be a Mensch Without a Bench. We've already patented this name already. Don't think you're going to take away with it. There was somebody I know who I'm friendly with right away, wanted to make a whole deal with me. Forget about it. Be a Mensch Without a Bench. What do I mean? I'm going to make a presentation with Hashem's help that's without a bench. What do I mean without a bench? Without being judgmental, without sidelining anyone, but how to be a mensch in this world today. And the reason why I'm kind of thinking of this is because we're in a world plagued with so many uncertainties. We seek we desperately need certainties. In a world steeped in ambiguity, we yearn for clarity. In a world filled with corruption and superficiality, we all deeply long for integrity, authenticity, and sacredness. In the name of the advancement of an enlightenment, what's happening to the world around us? Human beings have formed a world in which almost nothing is sacred anymore. A world in which ideologies triumph over humanity. What is the dominant and most lauded ideology of our times is called relativism. When everything is relative, nothing is really relevant. When everything goes, nothing really matters. It is a world where there are no absolutes and essentially no clear distinctions between what is good and what is evil, between what is noble and what is lowly, and what is worth fighting for and what is not worth a minute of my time. So, please, this is my number, 516-739-3636. Give me a call, tell me, and I'll be happy to come and make this presentation again. It's a very, very upbeat and positive about being a mensch without a bench. This is a presentation without being judgmental, without sidelining anybody. Well, let's get right into our program today. Do you hear it too? Because wherever I go, I hear the sounds of shattering, things breaking into millions of pieces. I feel like we're living in a biblical story. Let me explain. One of my favorite stories as a child was about a young boy named Abraham. Yeah, I'm talking about baby from the Bible, who was tasked with running his father's shop of idols. In fact, his father, Terah, owned this huge warehouse, and it was called Idols R Us. Abraham, who had long discovered the real God in heaven, had no intention of actually selling idols. Instead, he used the opportunity to convince his potential clients that idols have no power and worshipping them is pathetic. Ultimately, he took a hammer to the idols and smashed them to smithereens. When Abraham's dad returned, infuriated, Abraham claimed that the idols began to fight and kill each other. "You can't be serious," his beloved father responded. His name was Terah, effectively proving Abraham's point. Those are idols who can't walk or talk. I've always loved this story. I can easily picture young Abraham standing alone among hundreds of smashed idols. How satisfying it must have been to grab a hammer and hear the clay statues breaking into tiny pieces. But destroying the idols was the easy part. The real challenge was dealing with everyone's reactions. The idols were, of course, widely idolized. People cherished them. They were seen as highly significant and precious. So it took tremendous courage for Abraham to take a stand and stick to his values. Let's fast forward to today. Since Simchas Torah, October the 7th, since this massacre, I see many people having second thoughts about things they used to hold in high regard, idols of sorts. Take, for example, Ivy League schools. For years, people have looked up to them as the ultimate source of knowledge. Over the past few weeks, however, we've sadly discovered that knowledge does not always equate to moral values and the care for human life, especially when it comes to Jewish lives. And what about Hollywood? Oi Gewalt, Hollywood. Talented actors and actresses who seem to be so successful and influential. That idol has shattered too. Acting talent does not always go in hand with the care for Jewish suffering. Now consider the media. So many of these suited up, sharp-witted reporters and commentators are always ready to provide unbiased reporting, except, of course, when Israel is the topic. It's time to say goodbye to that idol too. There are so many idols out there. To me, the biggest is the idea that if Jewish people would integrate into the Western world, if only we would be like everyone else, we wouldn't need to worry anymore about our safety. So Abraham was left idol-less, and we are too. But this is not a cause for worry or fear. On the contrary, letting go of the idols actually frees us to be who we truly are and what we are meant to be. When Abraham smashed the idols, he seemed to have nothing. No money, no power, no fame. But actually, he had everything. What did he accomplish? He had faith, he had courage, he had connection, and the promise that if he kept at it, he would be successful. And so we too have the same promise. Our faith is strong, Hashem is with us, and with Hashem's help, we will survive, thrive, and flourish. Now, let's talk about another important dimension of our thought process during this time. And that is, are social media platforms responsible for fake news and hate speech? Here was the question presented to us. I was reading that the Supreme Court of the United States is going to hear a case about whether social media companies are allowed to censor users' posts. Some claim that due to First Amendment, social media platforms have no right to censor speech, even if others may find it hurtful, disturbing, or worse. Others claim that it's their duty to protect their users. What we will learn. Let me explain. First of all, good morning, everyone. It's good to see and welcome everybody on the radio world and on the Facebook world, and say hello to my good friend Peter Hirschhorn. So before answering, I want to point out that there is an underlying philosophical difference between the Constitution and the Torah. Why? Why do I see this? The Constitution is based on the notion that man was created with natural rights, and its government's job is to protect those rights. According to the Torah, however, God did not just create us and leave us up to our own devices. Rather, Hashem is actively involved in the world and actually cares about what we do. So he didn't give us passive rights, but active responsibilities and duties. So, now let's turn again to the idea of free speech within Judaism. A quick visit to any Talmudical study hall is enough to make it abundantly clear that Judaism is very much in favor of boisterous, spirited, and to put it mildly, debate to help cut through the fog and reach a correct conclusion. The Talmud itself is essentially arranged as a series of arguments between the rabbis debating a host of Judaic subjects. So healthy debate is actually baked into the Jewish approach to life. But does Judaism believe that there is an inherent notion of freedom of speech? Are there times when speech should be curtailed? And if yes, can one person be responsible for another person's speech? What about platforms, which may or may not even be aware of how they're being used? So, in a nutshell, we are responsible for what we say. The Torah is clear. Watch your words. There are things you just shouldn't say. This includes Lashon Hara, which literally means in English evil speech, speaking negatively about others, even if it's true. As the Torah tells us, you shall not go around as a gossiper, a gossip monger amidst your people. Now, Lashon Hara, evil talk, includes oinos devarim, which means hurtful speech, saying things that will hurt, frighten, or embarrass someone. This is reflected in the verse that says, and you shall not aggrieve one man his fellow. You shall fear Hashem. Depending on the situation, harmful speech can actually violate up to 31 Torah commandments. Of course, there are exceptions, such if your speech can save someone from being harmed. But all things being equal, hurtful speech is generally prohibited. So, we individuals need to watch what we say. But do the platforms have a responsibility to monitor what people say? Let's look at 3 Jewish concepts that can shed some light on this very subject. And I would put it under the heading of enablers and bystanders. The Torah says the following. There's a prohibition of placing a stumbling block before a blind person, which is broadly understood to mean doing something that will cause or enable a person to misstep. Another idea, the notion of aiding and abetting wrongdoing, even if you are not the cause. The imperative not to stand by upon the blood of your fellow, which compels you to act when you see a person being harmed. So, what do we mean by all of this? What does it mean placing a stumbling block before the blind? This refers to providing an opportunity for sin that would otherwise not exist. The classic example is of a Nazirite. This is someone who was forbidden to drink wine or other grape products. He's standing on the riverbank. If you reach across the river and hand him a cup of wine he couldn't otherwise reach, you transgress this sin. If, however, he had access to the wine without you, you would not be liable. This prohibition doesn't apply to social media platforms, since slanderers and haters have many ways of getting their message out, even if they were blocked from a single platform. Even if someone could have sinned without your help, there's still a potential of transgressing this prohibition, and what is called Misayeya Lidvar Avera, which translates, the person is a helper for a prohibited action. Nevertheless, the rabbis point out, this only applies if you provide the actual forbidden substance or tool, such as handing this Nazarite the cup of wine. However, handing them something neutral, such as an empty glass, is permitted. So based on this, you might think, as long as these social media platforms are completely neutral, and it's the user who's choosing to misuse them, the platforms wouldn't be helpers for a prohibited action. This may have been true in the earlier days of social media, but today, some platforms are actually using algorithms that push certain content. If a social media platform chooses to favor specific hateful or harmful content, it may very well fall into the category of aiding the wrongdoers. What does it mean not to stand by the blood of your neighbor? Maimonides defines this prohibition in the following manner. This commandment applies when a person sees his or her fellow drowning at sea, or being attacked by robbers, or a wild animal, and he can save him. Or he can save it himself, or he can hire others to save him. Similarly, it applies when he hears informers conspiring to harm a colleague or planning a snare for him, and he does not inform him and notify him of the danger. It applies when a person knows of a particular individual who has a grudge against his fellow, and he can appease the aggressor, but he fails to do so. And similarly, in all of these kind of instances, a person who fails to act transgresses. So while the platforms may not be compelled to curtail victimless, sinful speech, under the first two prohibitions, they should prevent harm by censoring harmful content as best as they can. And even when there are no victims, the sages encourage us to prevent all possible sins as an act of piety, an act of goodness. So again, what is the Torah's perspective? We'll move on to this in another aspect of this. And I'm sure you're up to date with the hate speech and the issues now on Twitter, and hopefully things will be curtailed in terms of promoting very, very harmful and anti-Semitic talk. What is the Torah's perspective on safe spaces, trigger words, and political correctness? Here's the question that came to our offices. I currently attend a college in the United States, and lately there has been much controversy surrounding safe spaces, where students can retreat to avoid the overwhelm itself caused by triggering words and ideas. Many insist on their importance, while others contend that they hamper dialogue and free speech. I was wondering, what is the Jewish perspective on safe spaces and the overabundance of political correctness that we see on campuses these days? Should professors and other lecturers not speak about certain topics or use certain words because students might feel triggered? Here is a thought on this very question. I'm well aware that this controversy is nuanced and politically charged. Without getting into particulars of safe spaces, I'd like to give you a Jewish perspective on this. A quick visit to any Talmudical study hall is enough to make it clearly, abundantly clear. Judaism, as I mentioned earlier on, is very much in favor of boisterous, spirited, to put it mildly, debate to help sharpen one's opinions and reach a correct conclusion. The Talmud itself is essentially arranged as a series of arguments between rabbis debating a host of Judaic subjects. In fact, the Talmud tells us that one can really acquire Torah knowledge only through learning in groups with a chava. It has some very harsh words for those who don't want to learn with others. In short, it's clear that healthy and even heated discussions between opposing viewpoints is the Jewish way. The real question, however, is, what is Torah's view on freedom of speech? Should some speech be curtailed? So first, we need to understand an underlying philosophical difference, as I mentioned earlier on, and I wanted to emphasize this point again. There's a big difference between the Constitution and the Torah. According to the Constitution, man was created with natural rights, so the government sees it as its job to create laws that protect those rights. According to Torah, however, God did not just create us and leave us up to our own devices. Rather, God is actively involved in the world and really cares about what we do. Therefore, He did not give us passive rights, but active responsibilities and duties. So, as much as the Torah holds vigorous debate and speech in high regard, it doesn't hesitate to prohibit certain types of speech. And I share this again with everybody. And what is that? Lashon hara. Speaking negatively about someone else, even if it's true. Speaking negatively about someone violates a biblical commandment. You shall not go around as a gossiper amongst the people. You shall not stand by shedding the blood of your fellow. And depending on the situation, talebearing can violate up to 31 Torah commandments. I know I'm repeating myself, dear friends, but I wanted to, bring the message home. To be sure, if keeping silent will result in physical or financial harm to someone, then one is required to speak up. Nevertheless, all things being equal, such speech is prohibited. And there's much that we can discuss at other occasions about whistleblowing in Jewish law. Hurtful speech. Of course, your question isn't so much about whether one can speak negatively about a person, but whether one can use speech that may be hurtful or arouse negative emotions in the listener. And of course, the Torah is very clear about that, but not aggrieving a fellow human being, even through speech. We must even, include, it's called Einoas Devarim, purposely saying something that will, if something will hurt or frighten or embarrass someone, don't say it. It includes reminding someone who repented of some previous sin, telling someone that his troubles and misfortunes are caused by the person's inappropriateness. You must never do that. Or even speaking negatively to someone about his prior life. This prohibition applies to all times and all spaces. At the same time, if one is saying hurtful things to you or someone else, you're not required to remain silent in fear of replying in a hurtful manner and transgressing this. So there's much to talk about in this, Contrary to popular belief, turning the other cheek is not a Jewish value. And we can discuss that again at other occasions. So practically speaking, if Jewish law deems certain speech to be negative or hurtful, it is prohibited in almost every circumstance. The concept of a safe space is irrelevant. At the same time, it should be noted that not all speech that a safe space is meant to protect from is prohibited. This leads us to the next part of this question, whether a teacher should make sure to be politically correct in the classroom and avoid certain words. The Talmud points out a fascinating detail in the Bible's description of Noah gathering all the animals into the ark. The verse says, of the pure animals and of the animals that are not pure, 2 by 2 they came to the ark, male and female. This is God's commandment to Noah. Now, this is a very unusual expression. In general, the Torah is written in a short and concise language. Every letter has meaning, and no letters are extraneous. So why call an animal not pure instead of saying, bring in the pure ones and the impure? Why call it a not pure instead of impure, which uses an extra 8 letters in the Hebrew? And the answer is because the Torah is avoiding referring to these animals in a derogatory way, teaching us the importance of refined speech. Someone once asked me, is it okay to swear when they're by themselves? My friends, swearing, saying words, if they're not words that should be said in public, they should not be said in private as well, because actually saying inappropriate, unrefined speech has an effect on the person. But then the Talmud goes on to say that many times the Torah does use the word impure, because when it comes to teaching students, one should be always clear, concise, use concise language, even at the expense of more refined speech. So although the teachers need to be mindful of what they say, and certainly never intentionally use harmful speech, when choosing between PC, political correctness, and non-PC language, it is important that clear, concise, and unambiguous language be used, lest the lesson becomes garbled and misunderstood. Safe spaces are still up for debate. We've left plenty of room for your classmates to debate the pros and cons of safe spaces from the perspective of constitutional rights. Just keep in mind that from a Jewish perspective, talking negatively is almost always prohibited. I'd like to now to pivot a little bit on another important subject about the children that we're blessed with, or as I joked yesterday in my shul, that most children I know have parents who preceded them. I'd like to, anybody wants to email me if they think they preceded their parents. Most people I know were preceded by their parents. First comes the parents and then comes the children. But of course we all know that not only are we children of our parents, we're also the parents of our children. And I want to, in the world that we live in today, think about the many children or the many young people or the many old people, whatever, many people around us. Are they, in the current discussion of this world today, are they giving their family the proper recognition? Are they giving, to be more blunt, are they giving their parents nachas? Are we giving our parents nachas? And perhaps more so, are our parents giving us nachas? Oh my goodness, that sounds very controversial. Well, I'm going to tell you the following. On a lighter note, babies are the worst roommates. They're unemployed. They don't pay rent. They keep insane hours. Their hygiene is horrible. If you had a roommate that did any of these things babies do, you'd ask them to get, I don't use any bad language on the radio here, you'd ask them to move out. Do you remember what happened last night? Today you're all smiles, but last night you were hitting the bottle really hard. Then you started screaming, and you threw up on me. Then you passed out and wet yourself. I went into the other room to get some dry clothes. I came back. Oi, gewalt, you made my entire bed dirty. Dude, you got to get out of here. You got to move out. My friends, I'm talking a little bit on the humorous side. But that's what I'm talking about. It was only yesterday. The opening words of the section of the Bible that was discussed speaks about father and son, about parents and children. And strangely, the portion opens up where it says the following. These are the generations of Yitzchak, Isaac, the son of Abraham. And then goes on to say that Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak. And of course, many of the commentaries dwell on this repetition. Why does it have to repeat itself? If the Torah identifies as Isaac as the son of Abraham, what is being added by informing us that Abraham gave birth to Isaac? I mean, obviously, if Mark is the son of Tim, then Tim must be the father of Mark. You don't have to be a rocket scientist for that one. The question becomes more striking when we compare this verse to what the Torah describes just a few verses earlier of Abraham and his other son. We all know who Abraham's other son was, Ishmael. And there it says, these are the generations of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and goes on to say that that was given birth by Hagar, who was the other wife of Abraham. So we do see Ishmael as being described as the son of Abraham, but it does not say that Abraham was the father of Ishmael. Hey, what's the difference? Right? What's the difference? Abraham fathered Ishmael just as he fathered Isaac. How come there's no repetition? When it comes to Abraham, it says Isaac was the son of Abraham. And then it goes on to say that Abraham gave birth to Isaac. But when it comes to Ishmael, we don't see that. It just says that Abraham fathered Ishmael. It doesn't say that Ishmael was the son of Abraham. Then we have this description yet a few verses earlier about Abraham and his other sons. We know that after his wife Sarah passed away, he remarried Keturah. And then we have a whole list that says Abraham married, her name was Keturah, and he had this one and he had that one and all the different children that he had. And then concludes, all these were the children of Keturah, which was Hagar. Come on. Why do we have Abraham there? Why don't we say that Abraham gave birth to these children? Why is that? Here, Abraham's name is not even mentioned at all. Not that he was their father, nor that they were his children. It just says that they were the children of his wife Keturah. Why all of these differences? Here we get to a very, very important issue of our times as well. Because often we encounter a generation gap. Parents and children in conflict with each other because they hold different worldviews and measure their lives against different value systems, or because they have emotional issues with each other. At times, the mistrust is reciprocal. If you will talk to the son or daughter, he or she is embarrassed with their father. Nor can the father gaze at his son's behavior and take pride in the fact that he is his son. In its less severe forms, it might be one-sided. The parents might be proud of their children's achievements, while the children scorn the primitiveness and the backwardness of their parents. I'm sure you all remember what Mark Twain once quipped. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant that I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years. A man once told me that his young son came to him and said, "Pa, I have a date Saturday night." "Good," says the father. "Who's going to stand in the way?" "A young man has a date. He has a date." "But I have problems," says the son. "I ran out of my allowance. Maybe you could be kind enough, advance me a little bit of next week's allowance." "How much?" says the father. "Well, Pa, today to take out a girl, you need $200. Anyway, the father advances the son on his allowance. "But it's not enough, Pa," says the son. "Today, you can't take a girl on the bus or the subway, and you can't walk on the street. Can I borrow the car?" "Sure, take the car," says the father. "Pa, just one more thing. That new sports jacket you bought," he says, "I spotted it. It's a real beauty. Dad, I'll look like a smash. Can I wear it?" Sure, take the sports jacket, take the car. Here's the $200. And as the son is leaving, the father says to him, "Have a good time, son." And the kid turns around and says, "Pa, don't tell me what to do." Kim is smiling. Sounds familiar? Alternatively, the children might revere their parents, while the parents are disappointed in their children's behavior. Sometimes a son or a daughter may take deep pride in their father, but the father is pained by the lifestyle of his kin. Or conversely, a child is embarrassed by his old man, but the father is so proud of his child. So the Torah is telling us that in the case of the first generations of the Jewish people, Abraham and Isaac, there was no gap. Isaac had no reservations about he was proud of being the son of Abraham. While Abraham was no less readily identified himself, he was proud to say, I am the father of Isaac. Despite the fact that they embodied two very different approaches to life, Isaac sensed that everything he is and has derived that he has is from his father Abraham, while Abraham saw in his Isaac the fulfillment and the realization of his deepest self. Isaac was super proud to walk around and say, hey, look who my father is. He loved showing off, so to speak, that he is the son, Yitzchak, the son of Abraham. He is Abraham's son. He could not be proud of the fact of who his father is. And Abraham? He could not stop kvelling from the fact that a boy like Isaac was his son. Abraham fathered Isaac. He was so deeply proud to say that he is the father of Isaac. Unfortunately, about Ishmael, the other son of Abraham, we say Ishmael was the son of Abraham. He was so proud of his father. He walked around telling the world what a special father he had. It brought him special joy and probably special privileges. And we all know Abraham was a legend in his day. Ishmael can get it to all types of places because due to his father. After all, Abraham was the paragon of love and kindness. But his father was not always proud of his son. Ishmael was the son of Abraham, but the Torah does not say the converse. And that continues on with the same with the later children of Keturah. There's no mention of their father. There's no connection. They had no interest in him. He meant nothing to them. They did not see themselves as his children. And he did pride himself in being their father. What are we being taught today? How careful, important a family is to be created and nurtured. When we infuse our children with a love for our values, a dedication to family, to love, to morality that is clear, to values, to faith, to Yiddishkeit, then the child is so proud to be a member of this family. To have such a father and mother. And parents are so full of joy of having such children that they walk together. You know the story. A woman once entered into a deli and asked to see the kashrus, the kosher certificate. Don't worry about it, says the man behind the counter. But how do I know it's kosher? She asked. The man pointed to a black and white photo hanging on the wall. You see that? He said, gesturing to this angelic face of an old man with a long white beard, a big yarmulke on his head, engrossed in Talmud study. Hey, in Talmud study, this was my father. Look, said the woman, if it was the other way around, if he was behind the counter and your picture was on the wall, I wouldn't have to ask about the kashrus certificate. This is part of what the Torah is telling us when it describes Abraham and Isaac walking to the Akedah. It says, Vayelchu shneim yachtov. They both walked together. It's an incredible moment. The God who gave him a son is now telling Abraham to sacrifice his son. And the two of them are walking together. Hello? This is just one moment of conversation between them. Isaac speaks up and says to his father, Father, yes, my son, Abraham replies, the fire and the wood are here, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham replies, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering. What What worlds of unstated thoughts and unexpressed emotions lie behind these simple words. Yes, as if to emphasize the trust between Father and Son and between both and God. The text repeats the same words. Vayelchu shneim yachdav. The two of them walk together. Here is an example where a father and son felt a sacred bond. Abraham looked at Isaac, and his eyes teared up with deep love and connection. Isaac looked at Abraham and felt fortunate this was the man he could call father. What bonded them was not the same disposition or nature. They were different people. What united them was their shared commitment to truth and their loyalty to God, their dedication to kindness, morality, and living a life that matters. So the first parents, the first Jewish parent, Abraham, and the first child of that family, Isaac, walked together towards an unknown future, their fears stilled by their faith. When we lose the family, we eventually lose all else. Sanctify the family, and we will have something more precious than wealth or power or success. The love between generations, that is the greatest gift Hashem gives us when we give it to one another. It's not always easy to walk together. Sometimes children choose things that are difficult for parents. Sometimes we are very different than our parents, and we will have issues with them. Nevertheless, the Torah is teaching us both parents and children need to always work on their relationship with each other. We must carve out the space in our hearts to always remain connected with our children and with our parents. On a flight he once took, I share you a story from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He was escorted by one of his granddaughters who attended to his needs during an entire flight. I think they were going to Israel. Near him sat a Jewish professor who was rather distant from his Jewish, everything, his traditions, etc. And the two naturally got into a major debate over the question of evolution. The professor, the Jewish professor, insisted that we have evolved from the apes, while the rabbi insisted that we were created by God. In the middle of the flight, upon witnessing the endless dedication and honor that the granddaughter showed Rabbi Kamenetsky, she kept on coming over. Zaidi, can I get you a drink? Can I help you? It's a long flight. We all know it takes many hours to fly. The neighboring professor asked the rabbi, how is it that your children and grandchildren treat you with so much respect? My children treat me with little or no respect. I need to beg them to quit the computer game and bring me a cup of water. Rabbi Kamenetsky responded that this makes perfect sense based on their ongoing debate. If you teach your children evolution, then they will view themselves as being higher evolved than you. You are closer to the monkey than they. Your father was even closer to the apes. Your great-great-great-great-grandfather was the ape, Shoin, and his grandfather was basically bacteria. Consequently, your children will not respect you. In Judaism, however, we teach our children that the early generations were higher evolved than we are. The early generations were closer to the experience at Mount Sinai and are to be revered. My father was closer to Moshe, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to Adam and Eve, and Sarah and Rivka and Rachel and Leah, Adam and Eve, created by God himself. We started out with creation, Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, as Micah would like to remind me. As a result, my grandchildren treat me with respect. I want to share with you another same idea of that respect and how we look around today and look at different people and different circumstances and wonder if children are following the ways of their parents and if parents are really proud of what their children are doing. I share with you about a film critic, author, and radio host called Michael Medved. And he published this article in a newspaper. And he tells the following. A few weeks ago, my 6-year-old daughter did something that greatly upset one of my professional colleagues. At the same time, it made her father enormously proud. It happened when I took her to a television taping. This is Michael Medved reporting. While I answered the questions, my daughter chatted with the show's associated producer, a bright, capable TV veteran that I've known for nearly a decade. This producer seemed specially delighted. She fussed and cooed over his daughter Sarah's hair and ribbons and frilly dress, then brought her colored pens, blank paper, and glasses of orange juice. When I finished my interview, I saw that my daughter had also received a large imported chocolate bar in a gold foil wrapping. "Daddy, look what Cindy gave to me," she said proudly. "But I didn't open it because maybe I think it's not kosher. Will you look and see and check if it's okay?" Our children have lived all their lives in a kosher home, and they know that unfamiliar products should be checked for the recognized insignia that certifies that all ingredients conform to Jewish dietary laws. So Michael Medved continues, "My daughter was hoping against hope that I'd detect some excuse in the fine print on the wrapper that she hadn't been able to find. Basically, would there be a kosher symbol? But the absence of any certification created a problem. "I'm sorry, Sarah," I said, handing it back to her after a careful search. "I just don't see any kosher mark." My 6-year-old looked crestfallen for just a moment, then quickly recovered and bravely passed the bar back to the lady who had given it to her. "Thank you," she said, with a shy smile. "I'm sorry, I can't eat it." The episode might have ended here, except that Cindy felt it deserved further discussion. "I can't believe what I just saw." Cindy was the TV producer. She exploded and set on to berate me, this is Michael Medved, and by implication my wife. Why? For destroying Sarah's sense of fun and spontaneity, encouraging compulsive behavior, and contaminating our child with fearful and superstitious ideas. She found it scary that the kid gave up a piece of candy she obviously relished, like some zombie follower of some cult. Worst of all, Cindy believed that this sick, authoritarian emphasis on kosher minutia would cripple my child's ability to reach decisions for herself, would make her grow up feeling different from other kids. It's hard to believe that Cindy would have responded in the same emotional way had Sarah given up the chocolate bar for some other reason. "Oh, you know why I can't eat it? Because it's too fattening or too high in cholesterol." There, of course, I respect you for that. It was precisely the religious basis for the sacrifice that made it so irrational and unwholesome. This is one aspect of the so-called cultural war that is seldom noted. In the same way that traditional believers are occasionally appalled by what they consider the heedless indulgence of secular world around us, secularists are often horrified by what they perceive as pointless restraints and rituals of religion. The practice of drawing distinctions, which represents such an important focus of Jewish tradition, seems arbitrary and threatening to many people without that focus. And so Michael Medved says, "I believe with all my heart that my daughter's childhood training in making such distinctions will stand her in good stead as she grows older. It seems to me a beautiful thing, not an erotic distortion, that a little girl is able to cheerfully sacrifice, this sweet taste of candy for the sake of a set of an external standards. I can think of no more valuable gift I give my children than equipping them to resist the pressure of their peers and to fight the all-powerful adolescent instinct to go along with the crowd, which is really what's going on around us today. A person who examines every bit of food she consumes may learn to evaluate more important aspects of behavior with similar care. In short, Michael Medved shares, I'm proud of my Sarah. There's an out of fashion, there's still useful word that can be applied to the trait that she displayed. They used to call it character, and this is the nachas. This is the nachas that this girl gave her parents. Are we educating our children with clear morality and values of what is right and wrong? Difference between something that is sacred and something which is horrid? I tell you, in his diaries and talks, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's the Rebbe's father-in-law, often describes the relationship and education he received from his father, who was the fifth Chabad Rebbe. In one of his diaries, he shares this story. For me, it captures how we should be bringing up our children, of what education is all about. And I think if you look around today, you'll see the results of years and years and years of the lack of a proper education in the younger generation. What does he share with us? Goes back to 1896. His father and himself were strolling in the fields in a hamlet near the town of, it was called Balivka, near Lubavitch. The grain was near to ripening, and the wheat and the grass swayed gently in the breeze. So the father said to him, who he later on became the Rebbe, see godliness. Every movement of each stalk and grass was included in God's primordial thought of creation, in God's all-embracing vision of history, and is guided by the divine providence towards godly purpose. Every single thing, down to the moving stalk and grass, is all by divine providence and with a purpose. Walking, we entered the forest, engrossed in what he had just heard, excited by the softness and the seriousness of his father's words. The previous Rebbe, a child, he absent-mindedly tore a leaf off a passing tree, holding it a while in his hands, and he was thinking. And as he thought and he moved, he was tearing off small pieces of leaf and throwing them to the winds. And his father turned to him and said, the Holy Ari says that not only is every leaf on a tree a creation invested with divine life, created for a specific purpose within God's intention in creation, but also that within each and every leaf there's a spark of soul that has descended to this earth to find its correction and fulfillment. And the Talmud, his father continues, rules that a man is always responsible for his or her actions, whether awake or asleep. The difference between wakefulness and sleep is in the inner faculties of man, his intellect and emotions. The external faculties functions equally as well. They also work in sleep. Only the inner faculties are confused. So dreams present us with things which are contradictory truths. A waking man sees a real world. A sleepy man does not. This is the deeper significance of wakefulness and sleep. When one is awake, one sees divinity. When asleep, one does not. I think today, so many, sadly, are walking around, but they're asleep. Asleep to the fact of seeing and appreciating and showing gratitude for all the things that we have. Nevertheless, our sages maintain that a man is always responsible for his actions, whether awake or asleep. Only this moment we have spoken of, of divine providence and unthinking, can a person, tear off a leaf, play with it, twist it, squash it, and tear it into pieces, throwing it in all directions. How can one be so callous towards a creation of God? My friends, if this is what he was brought up, the respect we must have for a leaf, how much more so should we all have respect of recognizing that all human beings are created in the image of God. The leaf was created by the Almighty towards a specific purpose. Every leaf is imbued with a divine life force. It has a body and it has its life. In what way is the eye, every one of us, we must appreciate, just as this leaf has such importance, how much another human being must have. And so, my friends, not too long from now, Hanukkah celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, of hope over despair. Hanukkah reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there's always a flicker of light that can lead us to victory. This year, as our people witnessed unprecedented horrors with brutality and everything else in Simchas Torah, it's a difficult time. And this year, we need the light of Hanukkah more than ever. We need to see and remember that the menorah's tiny triumphant flames remind us of the Hanukkah miracle and the unbreakable nature of all of us. My friends, we must appreciate it and prepare ourselves for Hanukkah to bring light into this world each and every single day of our lives and make a big deal about presenting light. That is why I conclude reminding everybody, if you know anybody who would allow me to come and speak at the front of a group, I have a program called Be a Mensch Without a Bench. This is a presentation based on non-judgmentalism and non-sidelining of anyone, but to be a mensch without a bench. My phone number for this is 516-739-3636, or send me a text at Rabbi Perl at ChabadMiniola.com. Have a wonderful, safe week, and all the best to everybody.